Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Getting Started webinar. Today, we're going to go over just a quick lesson overview of what we're going to cover today. I'm going to be going through and talking about settings that are going to help you before you start drawing, and then I'm going to talk about actually drawing in your walls and using the different commands for that. Just like every other webinar, it will be recorded, so I will be posting that up so that you can view it at a later date. And I'll also be sending out an email with a PDF that goes through everything that we've covered today. So that way you have an actual document that covers everything we've touched on. So the first thing I want to talk about is getting ready to draw in Envisioneer. So Envisioneer offers many options for customizing your interface and the way you draw. There are also settings that are specific to the current project and that will determine how your model will be built. Before you start drawing any of your walls, you should select the precision you want for your measurements. You should also set up your building location so that each element you insert is placed at the correct elevation in your model, since we are working with a 3D design here. There are several drawing aids available that help to control your cursor behavior and the way in which elements are inserted and drawn, such as the grid, your object snap, ortho, and collision. The building locations. This is probably the most important model-related setting are your building locations. Each building location represents a specific level or story in your design, such as the foundation or ground floor. When you insert an element, it is inserted on the current building location. The building location settings determine the height at which the element is inserted and the height of the walls on that level. So first, I want to talk about the units of measure. So when you start working with your units of measure, here you can control your actual precision and you can control what units you're actually going to be using. If you select the imperial or metric template, this should be set up for you already at the correct unit. But if you want to adjust the precision, this is where you would go. So you would go up to your settings, settings, document settings, and then units of measure. Now we're going to talk about the building locations. So here you're going to go to settings, and this time we're going to select building locations. And under the building locations, you're going to see a dialog box that pops up. Under this dialog, we have a couple of different columns here. So the number, this actually references the number for the location that you have created. The name is going to be the name of the actual location that you're working on. The floor level, this is the height of the floor above your ground level 0, or your terrain. This is one of the most important building location settings. And depending on where you're constructing this project, this number will vary. So you want to make sure that you come in here and make that adjustment first. The head height, this is the height of the tops of the windows relative to your floor level. Your ceiling height is the height of the underside of the ceiling surface relative to the floor level. Your wall height is the physical height of the wall on the building location, of the location. And then the framing options. This determines how the walls and intersections are framed on each location. We're going to click the Add Location button. And you're going to see a dialog that pops up that will help you calculate the height of your new location based on the grade or the location currently highlighted in the building locations dialog. And as you can see, we have that new dialog here. We're going to accept the default of calculate from existing location. And we're going to say OK. This will then bring up the location calculator dialog box. At the top of the dialog, you can specify the name of the new location, and below you can type in the relevant height and width of the walls and materials used for the floor. From these values, it will automatically calculate the new top of wall value and the floor level. So in here, if we typed in, let's say third floor, and we would type in our actual wall height for our third floor, our ceiling height, and our head height. So we're going to keep those the same as our ground floor. And then we're going to calculate our actual floor thickness. So we want a 3/4 inch sheathing. We want a let's do. And then we're not going to need a sill plate because we're on the third floor here. And then we would go in and we say this is going to be relative or calculate from our second floor, because that's where we're actually adding it into. So here we can see that that number there went from 18 feet. And as soon as I select the second floor, it goes up to 27 feet. So it's automatically doing the calculations for us. And as soon as I say OK, it'll add that in as location number 4 with the name of third floor, and then our floor level, our head heights, ceiling heights, and wall heights. Just a note here too, so that this green checkbox is basically lets you know that that is the currently selected location. So when we say OK to this dialog, that's the location that's going to be displayed in our building locations drop-down list at the bottom. If you wanted to make one of these the actual current location, just simply click in that area and it'll change the location that you're going to see when you say OK to this dialog. We're going to say OK. And we now have our new location in our display list. We see our third floor. Next, I want to talk about drawing aids. So below the drawing area, there is a set of drawing aids that can help you insert elements easily and accurately. You can turn each one on or off by clicking on it. So the controls I'm talking about are down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can see we have Snap Track, Grid Snap, Object Snap, Angle Snap, Grid, Ortho, and Collision. The Snap Track button, this helps you draw objects at specific angles or positions relative to other objects. When snap tracking is turned on, temporary alignment paths appear that are based on an object's snap point, such as the endpoints and midpoints. So for example, if I was to draw in a wall, and I wanted to reference using my snap track the end of this wall, because I wanted to line up exactly with that wall, as soon as I move my cursor to that point, and I start to move across and move up, you can see that a dotted line displays. That is snap track. That is telling me that along that line, I'm going to be exactly in line with the wall across from it. And as soon as I left click there, you can see that it automatically snaps to that point. The next feature I want to look at is grid snap. So grid snaps snap your pointer to an invisible grid when inserting elements. You can match the grid snap to your drawing grid if desired, or you can specify the desired grid spacing between your grid snap lines. So if we go up to settings and document settings, we have our drawing aids. So we have our grid enabled, and we have that down in our bottom display area here, grid. You can also enable that by pressing F7. We have our grid spacing, the X and Y values, and our actual terrain, or our actual limit is 160 by 160. Which matches our terrain, which is 160 by 160. If I wanted to enable my grid snap, I could click on the F4 button or just click grid snap and then click on the match grid, and it will automatically take into consideration what our spacing is and match our grid snap to that as well. And you can see that it automatically picked up that 4-foot dimension. Next, I want to talk about object snap. Object snaps is snaps elements that you are currently inserting to existing elements in your drawing. So if I was to add in a wall, it would find an object snap for that wall or whatever element that I'm actually selecting, and it will find an object snap and snap to its center, to its endpoint, and it will automatically pick those points for you. Angle snap, this snaps your pointer to a specific angle when rotating an element. So for example, if your snap angle is set to 15 degrees, your pointer will snap at 15, 30, 45, and so on. So if you have angle snap enabled and ortho turned off, then this will actually allow you to draw anything or rotate anything at those angles. And you can control what you want that angle snap to be in this drawing aids section of the document settings page. Ortho actually restricts your cursor movement to 90-degree angles when you are drawing or inserting elements. So if you are only going to be drawing off at straight lines, you're not going to have any angles, walls, then you want your ortho turned on. And then when you do need to draw anything on an angle, turn ortho off and make sure angle snap is turned on. In collision, this prevents objects from being inserted where they do not fit. So for example, if I'm trying to place cabinets up against my wall or a stairway in, I don't want those to actually intersect with my wall. So I would make sure that collision is turned on, and then they will actually snap to the edge of a wall for me and not allow it to actually snap in. In some cases, you may find when you're trying to fit something into a tight space, collision will become a bit of a hindrance for you. Simply disable it by pressing F9 on your keyboard, and then you can actually place your object, spin it around, snap it to the corner that you want, and then I would recommend turning it back on by pressing F9 again on your keyboard. I'm going to say cancel that because I don't want to take any of those settings that I made there. And next we're going to talk about drawing our walls in Envisioneer. So there are different ways to create walls in Envisioneer depending on your design style. You can draw them to exact dimensions or simply pick points while watching the on-screen dimensions. You can also copy existing walls to create new ones. Whether your design style is highly precise or more freeform, Envisioneer is a versatile tool that will work with you. First, you want to look at drawing walls to exact dimensions. So when you know the exact dimensions that you want your perimeter walls to have, you can use the Walls by Baseline tool. This option allows you to type in a precise length for each wall. As you draw your wall segments, a self-closing polyline diagram is formed. When you have finished specifying your wall lengths, you are then prompted to specify an offset method for those walls relative to the baseline that you drew. You can offset them from the outer face of the veneer, the outer face of the core, or the wall core, or the interface of the wall core stud. So we're going to go up and we're going to select the walls option, but we're going to use this little drop down button here, and we're going to select the Walls by Baseline option. Another way that this feature becomes very handy is if you're tracing over top of anything. If I have a PDF or a DWG file that I want to trace, I use the Walls by Baseline tool because I'm only going to be working with one line using this tool, and it becomes a lot cleaner to pick your actual points of your PDF or DWG. So again, just a tip there, if you're going to be tracing, use the Walls by Baseline tool to trace that PDF or DWG. I'm going to bring my mouse into the drawing area, and I'm going to go over to my catalog, and I'm going to select the 2x6 brick wall. And then I'm going to bring my cursor into the lower left region of my drawing area. I'm going to left click once. I'm going to move my mouse to the right. And this defines an angle of 0, as you can see in the commander at the bottom, direction 0. You'll then see a line display across your screen from the start point. Also in the commander, you're going to see that the distance and direction will start to display. We want to actually type on our keyboard 25 feet to specify the length of that bottom wall, and we're going to hit enter. We're then going to move our cursor upwards in the 90-degree direction, and you're going to notice that a closed polyline, so we're forming a triangle here, is being formed. We're now going to type in 10 feet. I'm going to hit enter. If you zoom in at any point, this distance may become disabled. So if I go to type in my next distance of 5 feet, it may not actually take. So you may need to go in here and actually click with your mouse button to get that distance dialog box active again. Just make sure that you're watching what you're typing and it's actually showing up in that distance box. So again, I'm going to type in 5 feet and hit enter, and it's added in that new distance for me. We're then going to move our cursor upwards again. This time we're going to type in 20 feet, hitting enter, and then move to the left, and we're going to type in 30 feet and hit enter. Once we've pressed enter, we don't need to actually go back to our start points. What we're going to do is we're just going to go right click and select finish. And if you do ever happen to make a mistake, you do have a step back option as well. So you can step back to the previous point and redo the last point that you messed up. We're going to click finish. And once we click finish, we're going to get a dialog box that pops up. It's called walls by baseline. This allows you to pick how you want that line or what you want that line to represent. Do you want that to be the outer face of your veneer, the outer face of your wall core stud, or the inner face of your wall core stud? For the purposes of our demo, we want that to be our actual veneer. And at the bottom there, we have an offset option. So you can also specify an offset distance if necessary. And if one is specified, whether the walls should be offset towards the inside or the outside of your layout. We're going to leave that set to 0 because we want that to be exactly the dimensions that we specified for our exterior veneer. So we're going to say OK. And once you say OK, our walls are now drawn. And when we click on the walls, we can see that they're using the actual dimensions we have specified. And I'm actually dimensioning to my core. If I go to document settings, settings, program settings, workspace, drawing aids, I am going to be going to my surface. So under building aids, dynamic dimensions, I have mine set to the core. I want surface, say apply, and then OK. And now when I select, we get our 25-foot dimension. That would be drawing with the walls by baseline tool. Next, we're going to talk about drawing walls with the point and click method. I'm just going to move my cursor over to the side here and take up a bit more of this drawing real estate. So if you prefer a more free-form design approach, or you want to draw your interior walls, you can use the walls tool. Once you've selected this tool, all you have to do is point and click with your mouse to define the start and end point of each wall. On-screen dimensions will then display the lengths of your walls as you draw them. And you still have the option of using the commander to specify an exact length and angle if necessary. Walls drawn with this tool are always drawn on center. So they'll always go to the center of the core. We're going to go up and we're going to select Insert and Walls. And we're going to go up into our catalog and we're going to select the interior frame partition folder. And then in that folder, I'm just going to select my 2x6 interior wall. We're then going to position our cursor inside our model here. And we're going to pick the corner here. And with my snap, object snap turned on, you can see that it's finding that corner for me and it's displaying it as a circle with an X. That lets me know that I'm actually snapping to an endpoint in that wall core. And I'm just going to left click once. I'm not holding my mouse button down, I just left clicked, and now attached to my cursor is the length of that wall as I move my cursor across the screen. And as you move, you can see that the dynamic dimensions are displaying the current length that we're at as we move our cursor. We're just going to move our mouse all the way across. And again, as soon as I get to the core on the other side, again, my object snap will pick up the center of that wall and it will automatically snap to that for me and give me that circle with an X. And I'm just going to left click again to specify my interior wall. And just like that, I've added in an interior wall using the Walls tool. Next, I want to talk about drawing walls using the insertion offset option. So now we're going to be drawing some walls using the insertion offset, which lets you start a wall at a specified distance away from the endpoint of an existing wall. So with our wall tool still active, we're going to right click to bring up our context menu. And this time we're going to select the Enter Insertion Offset option. In the Enter Insertion Offset dialog, we're going to type in 6 feet. Again, making sure to add in the foot sign, because if you don't, it assumes inches. We're now going to move our cursor. I'm going to say OK. We're now going to move our cursor into our drawing area, and you will see that it will automatically display a 6-foot dimension from any corner of the wall. So if I move this to anywhere in my drawing, it's going to show me that 6-foot dimension, and I can add in where I want that wall to go. So if I left click here, it will actually start drawing the wall at that 6-foot line. Even though my cursor is all the way over here closer to the corner, it will find that that is the 6-foot dimension, again, to the center line of that wall. And again, I can use the distance tool and actually type in a distance, or I can move my cursor all the way up until I find a snap point and snap it to the wall itself. We can also use walls creating a wall by copying an existing wall. So walls can be copied to create new walls. You can click and drag the copy to a new position, or use the command to specify a precise move distance and direction. If I wanted to create a copy of this wall, I would select it. I would go right click and say duplicate, and I can copy this wall up. And again, in my distance, I can type in a distance, or I can use if I use the end of the wall and go duplicate from the center, and I can find the center of that wall and add it in. I now have 2 rooms that are the same distance, just by copying it from the end of the wall and snapping it to the center of the other wall that I'm trying to attach to. So I'm just going to go over a review of what we've covered today, and then I'm going to open up the questions section. So please feel free to type in any questions that you have, and we'll cover all of those as well. So just to review, before starting a design, it is important to set up your building locations and prepare your drawing environment. Once that is done, you can begin drawing walls and adding elements to your design. Some points to remember. Before drawing walls, make sure you define your building locations and set up your units of measure and precision. A number of different drawing aids are available to help you draw, insert, and edit elements easily and accurately. You can use the Walls by Baseline tool to create an exterior wall layout with precise dimensions. Use the Walls tool for free-form design and for drawing interior walls. Use the Insertion Offset and Duplicate tools to accurately add walls to your model. Again, I'll open up the questions section, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in, and I'll do my best to go ahead and answer any of those that have come up. When I copied this wall, I actually copied it and I snapped to a point. You can also specify distance. So if I select this wall again, and I want to actually copy it down, I would just select it, again, duplicate. This time I'll select the center of that wall, and I'll move my mouse down. And this time I'm just going to type in 5 feet. So I want that to be 5 foot from the center of the wall to the center of the wall. And as long as I've moved my mouse in the downward direction, it will actually move down for me. So the direction there is saying 270. That's the direction that I'm moving. I hit enter, and it will move that wall again down for me 5 feet from the center of the wall to the center of the wall. Okay, so I have a question here. If my plot of land is not exactly east, north, west, south, how do I set up the grid so it matches the plot? If I don't do this, then my grid is not right with regards to my plot of land. Does that make sense? So the grid is always going to be oriented in this environment. What I would suggest that you do is draw in this north, east, south, west orientation, but you can then rotate your model or rotate your north direction that you need to under document settings, global, and then rotate it here. So when you actually go to insert this, you can actually rotate your model that amount of degrees so that it's actually orienting your plot the right way. But I just find it easier to draw in the 90-degree environment than trying to draw matching your plot lines. It's, again, easier to do it in the 90-degree and rotate the model afterwards. That would be my suggestion. I've never done it myself, but yeah, you can't actually rotate the grid. It's going to be based on that northeast, southwest direction. So again, just to clarify, draw in this environment. When you're done, you can actually select the model and say rotate if you want to, and rotate the actual model, the amount of degrees that you need to rotate it. But again, I would draw it in the 90-degree orientation first. And if you want to, you can even avoid rotating it here. When you go to insert it into your sheet view, you can rotate it here. So it's actually rotated on your plot. So you go to insert your site plan, rotate it in your working drawing sheet the correct way. So I'll leave the questions section open for a little bit longer. So again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in. If you happen to have a question later on that you just couldn't think of at the moment, you can contact our support department and they'll be able to help you out as well. And again, like I mentioned, we will be sending out a PDF that's covered everything that we've talked about today as well. And I do get this question quite frequently as well. People always like to draw with ortho turned on, and they want to be able to quickly and easily switch back and forth between the views, between the angle snap and ortho if they have a file that has an angled wall in it. If you look at the actual angle snap option, the F6, if I wanted to actually draw my walls at these at an angle, I could easily just start drawing a wall. So I'm just going to select my interior wall here, say 2x6. And as I draw, it's only going to snap in the 90-degree direction because I have ortho turned on. However, if I press F6, it'll automatically snap to that angle snap. And again, I'm only going to be able to draw at the 15-degree increments. So that's going to give me my 45-degree angle. Type in the distance that I want that to go, we'll say 6 feet. And then I can easily turn on ortho by pressing F8. And now I'm only able to snap in the 90-degree direction again. So I don't actually have to exit the command or go down and click on the buttons. I can use the F6 and F8 buttons to toggle between ortho and angle snap quickly and easily. So I have another question here. So if I have two buildings, like a detached garage at a slightly higher altitude, would I consider the building levels of each, make the layers levels, and then simply draw two buildings? And then there's another one below that, which is pretty much the same. Would I make all the level layers ground first, second, first, then simply switch between the layers levels and draw both buildings? It would depend on a couple of variables. One, if you want a quantity to be different, so if you want to bring up a quantity for the detached building separately from the ground floor building, then yes, I would create a new location called detached building, but base it off of the same measurements of the ground floor or slightly different variables in height. You could do it that way. You could leave them on the same location and then adjust the building afterwards if you want them to be on the same reports. The other option would be or the other variable would be when you're adding in your roof, the roof by perimeter tool will only work once on a location. So if I have a building and I add in that roof by perimeter and I have a separate detached building, the roof by perimeter will not work. I will have to use the roof by picking points option. So those would come into play as well. But again, I think it's going to boil down to how much of a difference is there between the two, and do you want them on the same report level? So when I'm creating my reports, do I want to have them separate? Is that second building going to be different in my report than my ground floor? To show you what I mean there. So if I have a building here and I go to my building locations, and we're just going to create a new location, and I'm going to say calculate from grade. I'm going to say detached garage. I want that to be only 8 inches off of the ground. I'm going to say OK. So now I have that new detached garage, but it's at a different height. And when I say OK, and I select the detached garage location, and I start to draw in my walls, using an actual exterior wall instead of an interior wall. And we'll say OK. So now, when I go and do my report, tools, analyze, generate quotes, I will have that split up into different walls. So I'll have my ground floor wall framing and then my detached garage wall framing. If I would have drawn this on the ground floor level, it would put all of this at the same, in the same area as this. So I would have this calculation would be a part of this now. That's what I mean by creating a new location. We'll create a new report location for you as well. If I was to just add this and say duplicate, and let's just delete that out. So let's go with delete. And if I go back to the ground floor, let's say I want them on the same location, I would then just draw the walls on that location. Again, selecting exterior wall. And then if I want to take advantage of the actual height of that location, I would then select those walls. Because these walls here, I want to actually elevate down, we'll say -8 inches, and that will move that down for me. Now these walls are actually at a different height than these walls, but they're on the same location. And when I go to add in my roof, the roof by perimeter will find this roof. But if I go to add in a new roof by perimeter, I will get a message saying, existing roofs on this location will be deleted. Do you wish to continue? Here I want to say no, because this is the easier roof to trace around. If I have a big complex roof, that's where I would use the roof by perimeter. But on this particular garage, I would use roof by picking points to show where I want that roof to go. So there is a couple of ways of going about it. It all is going to depend on how you want that to be displayed in your reports, where your roofs are going to be. All of that is going to be taken into consideration. We're going to leave the question section open for a little bit longer. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in. Another question is, how about a concrete structure? What would you do for that? If it's a concrete structure, it would be just the same as adding in your other walls, but instead of selecting the 2x6 brick wall, I would scroll down to my concrete walls, and I would either select the poured or the concrete block. And when I draw the wall, again, I would use the location that is going to be housing this type of wall. If I've already got a wall drawn and I'm trying to draw a foundation on the foundation level, then you can actually do this one of two ways as well. You can go down to your foundation and draw the walls in manually using the walls option and picking what type of wall that you want to use. Or you can go to your design wizard and select your floor and foundation builder. And I need to be on the ground floor to do that, sorry. Insert and design wizard and floor and foundation builder. And just gonna delete. No, we'll leave that. And this will actually step you through creating your location based off of the location that you have specified in your building location. So here, I'm going to be adding a foundation to the foundation location. And I'm going to say next. And I want this to be just a wall and a footing. And I'm going to select the wall that I want to use. And I'm going to use a 10-inch concrete wall. And I'm going to use a footing that is 1 foot by 1 foot 8. And we'll say OK. And then next. And then again, you can offset this however you see fit. And again, you can offset that towards the inside or the outside. I'm going to leave it at 0 and say next and finish. And now on that foundation location, it's going to add in those foundation walls for me. Again, you can use the walls option and simply trace around where you want that solid concrete wall to go, or you can use the floor level option, or sorry, the floor and foundation builder wizard option. So I'll leave the question section open for just a couple of more minutes. So if you do have any questions, again, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in. All right, while we're waiting for the last few questions to come up, if there are any, again, I will be sending out a PDF, and it will contain everything that we've talked about today, so that way you have some documentation that you can refer back to, and you can revisit the lessons just to try it out for yourself. So that will be coming out shortly, and again, I did record the webinar as well, so it will be posted for you, so that way you have something to refer back to and watch if you just want to watch it again at a later date. That does look like that is all the questions for today. So again, I want to thank everybody for attending today, and I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.